Welcome to the Firestarter podcast. People, ideas, and conversations that move us forward. I'm your host, Willa Kammerer, and it's my passion, my purpose, and my business to make the world a better place through storytelling, which is why we're here today. We'll talk to mission-driven entrepreneurs, philanthropists, and investors, thought leaders, researchers, and experts on the front lines of the world's most pressing issues about designing and thriving in careers of impact. My guest today is Navyn Salem, the founder and CEO of Edesia and MeWe. Edesia is a nonprofit social enterprise with the mission to treat and prevent malnutrition in the world's most vulnerable populations, founded by Navyn in 2009. The factory in Rhode Island produces a wide range of fortified, peanut-based products for humanitarian agencies like UNICEF, World Food Program, USAID, and other NGOs working in emergency and conflict zones. Since 2010, Edesia has reached more than 12 million children in over 57 countries, including Somalia, Venezuela, Yemen, and Syria. In 2019, Navyn founded MeWe, a commercial line of nut butters addressing nutritional challenges for the many ages and stages of life here in the USA. Navyn has won many awards for her entrepreneurship and humanitarian leadership, and holds honorary degrees from a number of colleges and universities. Navyn is a 2014 Henry Crown Fellow of the Aspen Institute and a member of the Aspen Global Leadership Network. She is also a mother to 4 daughters and lives not too far from me here in Rhode Island. In our conversation, we talk about Navyn's pathway to founding Edesia and her mission to tackle malnutrition on a global scale, the power of action, starting where you are and learning as you go, and advice for our listeners on following your curiosity and connecting with purpose. It was such an inspiring conversation, and I can't wait to share it with you today. Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
Hi, Willa. So nice to see you.
So, we met locally here working out, and I have to say, for the first few months, little did I know, who this person was next to me sweating on the exercise bike and kind of the amazing story behind the person. And once I, connected the dots, I was just, so kind of blown away, by all that you do. So I'm really excited to have you here and, dig in deeply to it.
Well, thanks for having me. And any good workout class doesn't let you have the chance to talk at all. So That's why we don't really know each other, is because we're too tired.
Exactly. So here we are now. So you're the founder and CEO of Edesia, which is a global social enterprise. And I just really look forward to talking more about, how that all got started. You're here in Rhode Island, but the work that you do has truly a global impact. And you also have put together a global team as well. So There's just so much to talk about. So why don't you just, how did it all get started?
Yeah, so the genesis is really from my father, and he is from Tanzania, as well as my grandparents and great-grandparents. So that entire side of the family was born and raised there since the 1800s. And so I didn't get to visit Tanzania until I was just graduating from college. And so that was really the first time that I was exposed to what my dad's life was like growing up, and really for the first time seeing what challenges there were in the developing world. And those first visuals really stuck with me. And after that, many years later, after having a proper job, and I then became a mom, and I had 4 kids in 5 years. And this concept of motherhood and caring for children, brought me back to that trip in Tanzania and thinking about the challenges that mothers had that were nothing compared to what I had. I thought my life was hard because I started with twins. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I did have access to everything that I need. CVS is down the street, and I have clean water, and I have a roof over my head, and I have a refrigerator full of food. And so I was just always wondering, how do mothers do it in a place like Tanzania when there's so many challenges? And so my brain just started going on overdrive. And I also have a business background. And so tying in business to all of these, to motherhood and to Tanzania really kind of tied everything together. And that's how Edesia was born, a little mixture of all three of those things.
So was there, a trip where you, went back and you kind of put the pieces together? How did you kind of come up with this vision for, because there are so many, I imagine there are so many needs, so how did you kind of figure out like the right place to plug in?
Yeah, I mean, I love looking for problems. Well, I just see them everywhere, but I also really enjoy the problem solving component of that. And so I did, when my youngest daughter was 1, I decided to pack my bags and go back to Tanzania. And, really I had stored all of these ideas in my head for quite a while. And so when I went back, it was really with the intention of figuring out what I could do in the space specifically. I'm very much about action and doing. And so I wanted to see what other nonprofits were doing and what their philosophies and their mandates were, and how I could fit into what's already being done, and really looking for gaps, regarding what's not being done. And I remember seeing, water projects and education projects and very traditional, much needed, of course, but traditional development types of projects. And I remember saying to them one day, I want to go and see this factory. And they're like, no, that is not on the program. I'm like, but I really want to see it. Sounds fascinating. And I went to this factory. I finally convinced them, where they were making mosquito nets. And there were 3,000 women who were all working at sewing machines, rows and rows of them. And there was also a line out the door. And the people waiting in that line were waiting for jobs. And so I thought about this, like the ability to earn a paycheck. That's what everybody wants, right? And that's what so many people, that's one of the root causes of poverty, is not having the ability to have a job and to earn a paycheck. And I thought, these 3,000 women who are sitting here, they're earning money that will allow them to do whatever they need for their families. They can pay for education, healthcare, a roof over their head, food, etc. So it's wonderful, but also on top of that, they just happen to be making something that saves lives. And so the idea of economic development and paychecks coupled with the ability to solve a global health problem was just the most amazing business model to me. I said, I want to steal that. But let's slot in this other topic around malnutrition, because no one's talking about this. So this was about 13 years ago now, in like 2007. And so we heard a lot about HIV and malaria and all of that, but malnutrition was really not even like on the agenda anywhere. But at the time, there were 5 million children under the age of 5 who were dying every year from something that we know is 100% preventable. We don't need to do any research about it. We know that children, no matter where they're born, need access to food and nutrition, just like my kids. And I thought, what if I had to lose one of my girls from something that we know how to prevent? How can that be in this day and age? How can that be okay? And so I thought, I need to figure out what can be done about this, because certainly there has to be a solution.
Definitely. So, I mean, did you feel like, okay, I've got this, like, I know how to do this, you just do this, this, and this, or, what was your experience of kind of going from that initial idea, like there's so many kind of entrepreneurial ideas of a new venture, but how did you actually bring it to life and, put the pieces together to make it, what it is today, which I know has been an evolving process?
Yeah, well, I had seen this product called Plumpy Nut when I was in Tanzania. And then when I got home, I'm a 60 Minutes nerd, and I turn on the TV and I see Anderson Cooper doing a report from Niger on Plumpy Nut. And I was like, wow, what are the chances of running into this very strangely named product twice in such a short period of time? And so I learned about this, magical miracle paste that's peanuts mixed with milk powder and vegetable oil and sugar and vitamins and minerals. And within 6 or 7 weeks can completely rehabilitate a child. And I sat there saying, okay, I need to figure out how to make this peanut butter that I have no manufacturing experience. And I've never even worked for a nonprofit before. I worked for an internet company, an ad agency that became an internet company before that. So none of those techie skills could really translate into making peanut butter. And who does know how to make peanut butter? No one, right? Not that many people. So obviously you have to figure out, how to put these pieces together and how to learn how to do it. But I learned that there was a company in France called Nutricept, and they were manufacturing this plumpy nut. And so I went to meet with them, and on the spot, we decided to partner together, and they were the ones who taught me about all the complex machinery that we need to buy in order to create a factory. And so, in fact, my first factory was in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The commute was a little rough, though, I admit. It's a little far. And so then a couple years later, yeah. So I was like, how about Providence? That would be a little bit easier to drive to. It's closer to my home. So.
Definitely. I mean, well, we've been taught our whole lives, particularly as women, you need to kind of have these certain qualifications before you can do this. I mean, where did you kind of find it inside of yourself to just feel like you really could do it?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is something that we struggle with. I still continue to at some point struggle with that. So it's something you're kind of always going up against. But I think the main reason that I know that I need to move forward every day is because during that first trip, I saw a woman lose her child to malnutrition, and I saw her tears, and I saw the raw emotion and the devastation that she was feeling losing her daughter. And that is my why is very clear, and the urgency felt very real. And it's not that there aren't other people who are working on this, but I felt this enormous sense of responsibility to do something, and to do something now, because people would say, you don't exactly have a lot of free time with 4 kids under the age of 6 right now. And I was like, I know, but when will we ever have enough free time? I don't think there's ever going to be this perfect time where I'm like, well, I have nothing to do today. I'm going to start a factory. No, it's not about convenience, and it's not about having everything line up at the same time. It never will. And you won't have all the skills, and you didn't major in everything in college, right? So when you're an entrepreneur, you've got to figure out all these different things that you have no idea how to do. And so you just start calling friends and asking people who do this or that, for advice, and pull whatever you can together before you can then eventually start hiring, your first members of the staff who actually do know what they're doing and are experts in their field. But we have a lot of funny startup stories of things that we did, while we were in the process of getting going, that we laugh a lot about now.
What's one of them that stands out in your mind? How far we've come.
So, I mean, one of the first things we did was my first employee was Maria. And Maria and I decided to apply for a USAID grant. USAID is the Agency for International Development. So all of the foreign assistance that we do in the US government comes from there. And so people said, oh, first timers you will never win this grant, not in a million years. I'm like, well, we think we have a pretty interesting idea, so we're going to go for it. And so we're working out of my spare bedroom, and she sits right next to me, and she's a little horrified that we don't even have an office or anything like that. And so they're asking for everything, do you have a finance policy? Do you have what's your org chart, and blah, 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 all these questions. And for everything, I'd call a friend and be like, do you have a finance policy? Can I borrow it? And I'd change the logo and put in our logo on top. Next thing you know, we've amassed this 2-foot pile of paper. Now they asked every question under the sun, except, do you have a factory? I was like, they did not ask that, which is good, because we don't have a factory right now. I was like, but we're going to build one. It's going to be fine. And so we applied for this. This grant is $2 million a year, and it's a multi-year, so it will continue over a couple of years. We won. So we're like, okay, we got to build this thing. We have an opening day and the government is coming. The New York Times is coming. We have still on this very day not made a single packet of Plumpy Nut in our lives. And we've been working like crazy to try and do it. So I was like, all right, guys, everyone's coming tomorrow morning. What you should do is package air. So in these, like this actually has peanut butter in it, but picture this. I'm like, just put air in there and like move the boxes around really fast and tape them and move them like no one will actually know what's going on. But sure enough, on that first tour that I ever gave in my life with the New York Times and USAID, we actually made our first packet of Plumpy Nut ever. And I had to pretend like, this is every day, Monday morning. Yep, average Monday morning. Here we go. That's peanuts and that's this. I don't even know what I'm talking about. And we pulled it off like with seconds to go. So it was pretty exciting. And we haven't stopped running since. That was almost 11 years ago.
Wow, that's such an amazing story, and I'm just so glad it all came together for you.
Me too.
You know what? I know that, kind of being an outsider, can have it in an industry or, it can have its challenges, but also, what advantages do you feel like it's given you to?
Oh, for sure. That's a great question. So when I came back from that first trip from Tanzania and I had seen the very traditional development projects, I had a debrief call with the groups. These are pretty recognizable names, NGOs that I traveled with. And I said, I have this idea. We're going to start a factory and we're going to make, this fortified peanut butter to treat malnutrition. And they were like, that's the worst idea we ever heard. Because like, that's not what development is. Development is raise money, give away, give everything for free. And this is the model. And I remember getting off the phone with them and I was like really upset that I thought I had this really good idea. And all of these guys on the phone had at least 20 years experience. And they all said, it's not going to work. And that's just not how things operate. And so I was really deflated for like an hour. And then I thought, wait a second. I only have 20 minutes of experience. They have 20 years of experience. But what are the advantages of coming to this with a fresh perspective and looking at it through a whole new lens that is not 20 years, so that we have the opportunity to say, what can be done differently? How can we do this better? And that's why we need like the next group of young people and the next group of young people, because they're going to see it differently than we see it. And that's why it's so important that having no experience is actually really helpful, because you don't come with any assumptions. You just have an open mind and you have this creative space to say, like, how would I do this if I have a blank canvas? How would I design it? And that's an incredible opportunity that we all have to say, like, how would I do this if I had the chance? And that's what's so exciting about entrepreneurship and about doing big things is, really being able to do it with your own flair and in your own way, and then see what happens. And so I was really glad that I only obsessed about that for an hour and then moved on and said, give it a try. Let's see what happens.
Definitely, because it's not like we've solved all the world's problems with all the experience. So, all we have is, a fresh perspective, and that can be the solution sometimes.
Right. And you just have to be fearless, and I wasn't born with that gene either. And so again, it's because the why is so strong that it's like you have to overcome your fear of public speaking, your fear of being wrong, your fear of people judging, what you're doing, and it's not going to work out, and instead be afraid of, well, what if it works? What if it works? Then what? You're going to have to keep going and going. And can you keep up with this? And so, that's what you should be afraid of, is like, what if it's successful?
Definitely. Can you talk about, it sounds like, part of how you overcame that kind of fear and feeling like an outsider and all of that was through just kind of jumping in action. Can you talk about kind of like the power of action and just doing instead of kind of overthinking and feeling like you have to have it all figured out?
Yeah. I mean, that's my advice to anyone who wants to start something, is like, just start. just take that first step and see what happens. My mother raised me as a Quaker, and one of the important components of being a good Quaker is to take action. And when you see a social injustice in your world, to get up and do something about it. Like it's not acceptable to sit by and watch something that shouldn't be happening happen. And so, on the weekends, my mother would be off at protests in DC or New York or in our own hometown. And we'd be making posters on, anti-war and peace and whatever the topic was of the day. And so I was fortunate enough to grow up in this crazy house that had, the dad from Tanzania and the mom from, from Quaker roots that thought protesting every day, every weekend was completely normal and something that we should all participate in. And, so both of my parents really had a big influence and impact on Edesia being born as well.
Yeah, it sounds like from a young age you were, taught just to not sit on the sidelines, but to, if you see something that you need to get involved.
And be slightly crazy, it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. So, in preparing for our conversation today, I was reading just some numbers, about, Edesia's production. I don't know if they're the latest numbers, 1 million packs of Plumpy Nut per day, 55 countries around the world, 2 million children per year. I don't know if those are,
pretty good, Willa. You're a little outdated though. It probably means I need to update my website or something. But yeah, we just added some new equipment. Because of 2020 and the pandemic, we were anticipating that needs were going to be on the rise. So now we're up to making 1.5 million of these a day. And we've reached kids across almost 60 countries. And since 2010, we've reached well over 13 million children. And, but in many ways, it's like it always feels like we're also just getting started as well. There's a lot more work to do, but it's like the whole manufacturing piece that's like right outside my window there is super exciting to watch, all the technology and the robots and the innovation that we have here. We have an extremely innovative, creative team who is taking our technology always to the next level, because having the best price is critical. Like our efficiency is critical, because every penny that we spend needs to be so well spent, because we need to make sure we can feed as many children with the same dollar, really. So any innovation in that space is critical. So we're running 24 hours a day right now. We have 110 employees working around the clock to keep up, with orders. So, this social enterprise model is really, 95% of what we do is working with UNICEF, World Food Program, and USAID. And then there's a 5% that is really kind of traditional fundraising, where we are raising money from foundations and individuals. And what we do with that is work with very small NGOs who are outside of the United Nations system, who otherwise wouldn't have access to any of these products for their nutrition programs. And so we work with them to make sure that they have all the products that they need and make sure that kids can participate in programs in their country. So we work in about 8 countries in that model as well. And between the two of them, it allows us to really make sure we've covered all the bases whenever the phone rings, that we haven't turned anyone away, because then I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So it's important to have kind of these different models going on at the same time.
Definitely. And it sounds like you've also created, another line, like a consumer facing product that helps reinforce everything that you're doing, on that side as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, back to the, looking for problems and solutions, since we have this very unique, crazy experience here of these very specialized foods, I thought, well, what about what nutritional challenges do we have here in the United States? And so the first one I thought was, okay, we have peanut allergies. We have peanut-free tables and all of these things that any parent of a child with a peanut allergy lives their life in fear, and how difficult and challenging that must be. Is there something that we can do to help make life easier? And a couple of years ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics says, oh, whoops, we've been advising incorrectly for many, many years, 20 years. And now we've decided that instead of waiting to introduce peanuts to children, you need to introduce them as early as possible, and that will lessen the likelihood of developing an allergy by up to 82%. And so when you think about introducing peanuts early to a child, meaning 6 months, well, traditional peanut butter is a choking hazard, as are whole peanuts. And so what can we feed kids? So you'd have to kind of make your own, which of course you can do. Again, as the mother of twins, I think, who has time to make their own baby food? Like, that's awesome. I never could figure out how to find the time to do that. So, all of our fortified peanut butters are easy to swallow for kids 6 months. We've, as I said, 13 million of them. So I said, this has to be a safe delivery mechanism for kids, for babies in the US as well. So we made this very easy to swallow, proportioned to what the AAP was recommending for these guidelines. And so then we started to look, well, what do kids need in the US? And, we don't have a lot, but we do have children who are extreme picky eaters who end up with failure to thrive. And wouldn't it be nice to make something for them? So we made a fortified peanut butter in fun flavors like cookie dough and chocolate and birthday cake, so that any picky eater would be like, oh, I absolutely want to eat this. And then the parents feel good about it because it's actually low in sugar and it's high in protein, and it's also got your vitamins and minerals in it. So it's like sneaking in healthy food to kids who are challenging in their diet diversity. And then we even looked at adults and said, well, those who are struggling with an acute illness or recovery or cancer or elderly malnutrition, and creating something for that population as well. So those were all created in 2019. And then in 2020, this was, not my most innovative idea in the whole world, but when COVID hit and it was, March of 2020, life was very confusing and unsettling. And one of the things that I noticed was there are lines growing at our food banks, miles and miles and miles. And so people who were operating food banks were like, yeah, we used to have a block. Now we have 20 blocks, literally. And so I was like, okay, this is getting complicated. And then I was watching the Providence school system try to feed their kids who are qualified for free and reduced lunch. Well, how are they going to get their lunch that they are used to getting? Like everything was cut off with no notice, right? And so now you've got to somehow get meals to people. And so I said, okay, team, get ready for this crazy idea, which they hate when I come in here with the crazy idea. But I was like, we are going to make peanut butter, just straight. We've never made straight peanut butter. Like, that's not what we do. So I was like, tweak the machines, procurement, see if you can get, whatever we need to just make straight peanut butter. And packaging, like, let's design something. So we designed this in like 2 days. So it's called MeWe. It has a map of the United States in the back, and we called it Love. And so we made this, the whole thing took less than 10 days. But then, I don't know anyone in the US in the humanitarian space. I've never worked in the US in my life, right? So I'm calling FEMA. They don't answer the phone. I'm calling like anyone I can think of. I'm calling, food banks, and they're full. They have they have food. And so trying to figure out the system and not knowing anyone, it's like starting all over again. And so I was like, crap, maybe we made this for nothing. And I warned everyone. I said, this could go nowhere. It could go nowhere. I don't know. But let's make it just in case there's someone who might need it. And then like 3 days later, the US Department of Agriculture put out a tender for 2.6 million of packets of 32-gram peanut butter in a sachet, exactly how we had made it. And I was like, And so we bid on it and we won. And so now we had our first products going for humanitarian use in the United States. We got to add a new country. It was amazing to be able to help out here at home. The team felt so motivated, and just, to be part of any solution to a big friggin' problem that's going on feels really good. And to know now our product was in 5 different states, in food banks and in school lunch programs, was a really proud moment for everybody here. So that was kind of our latest innovation, if you can call it. But it's really like just trying to pivot in your, what's going on. It's like we have to react, right? And we have to do. And so we did a ton of craziness in COVID, but that's the one thing that's kind of still going, and I hope will continue to go from here on out.
I love that. It's taking what you know how to do, but putting a slightly different twist on it. And also, just seeing this clear need and, not just accepting it, but saying, okay, we're going to, come up with a solution.
Yeah. And I very much believe that it's not about choosing between the children of Yemen and Somalia and Venezuela or American children. Like this concept of America first or anyone first. No. If you are a kid and you are hungry, I don't care where you live, you have to do something about it. You just have to. It doesn't matter what your country, your zip code, none of that matters. It's like you're a child and you need help and you need food and nutrition. Like we are going to find a way to deliver it.
Absolutely. Well, this is a perfect time to take a short break, and we'll be right back. For the past few years, our team has been partnered with the Saul Zaentz Charitable Foundation on the production of a feature-length documentary, Starting at Zero, Reimagining Education in America. It's about early childhood education and why we need to take it seriously as a country. The film brings together the voices of policymakers, including 5 current and past governors, educators, academics, business leaders, pediatricians, parents, and children. Visit startingatzerofilm.com to learn more, watch the trailer, and connect with us on social media. You can also send us a message to host a free screening in your community or license the film for educational and institutional use. Again, that's startingatzerofilm.com. We look forward to sharing it with you, because the future of our country depends on a successful today for our children and our families. All right, and we're back. So, Navyn, I'd love to hear more about the team that you've assembled. From my understanding, it's incredibly diverse, which I think is so cool, because we are, in the smallest state, Rhode Island, in the country, and it sounds like you've kind of brought the world to your factory.
Yes, I love the team that I get to work with every day. So out of just over 100 of us, we come from 26 different countries. And that is like just an absolute blessing to be able to work with people from all over the world. Many are former refugees from, Syria, from Sierra Leone, Liberia. I mean, really all over the world. And it's really magical when you are able to ship to a country like Syria or Sierra Leone, where I know one of our employees is from. And, you can't assemble a group of people who understands the why more than they all do. They might have a sibling or a child themselves who struggled with malnutrition. They have seen these products in their own countries when they lived in refugee camps. Some lived anywhere from 5 years to 20 years in refugee camps, or were born in refugee camps. So many stories of resilience. And so to have a team that understands the problem firsthand ensures that we all feel the urgency. We all know why waste is unacceptable, why being on time is mandatory. It's because so many have depended on some type of assistance for a time in their life. And I really enjoy and love getting to know everyone here really on a personal level and understanding their story and why they're here. I have one, I could tell you 100 stories, but, my friend Simon, who worked here for many years, and he always, we had this presentation one day, a doctor from Zambia came and presented it, and I shut the whole factory down, and I wanted everyone to listen to him and what he was doing. And Simon starts asking questions about cure rates and about recovery and this and that. And he's asking like these really technical questions. And I was like, Simon works in production, packing boxes. And so a little while later, I said, Simon, I know you're a really private person, but we've known each other now for 3 years. You have to tell me, like, what's going on in that brain? Like, where were you before? What's your story? And he goes, so one day he finally said, okay, Navyn, I'll tell you. He said, I used to be a physician in the Ivory Coast. In fact, I ran all of the HIV, TB, and malaria programs for the country. And then I became a congressman. And while I was a congressman, the government was overthrown and I had to run for my life. And I ended up here in the US. I was able to get on a flight because I was a diplomat. But I came here and none of my skills were transferable. His first job was at Walmart. And here he is working in Edesia. And I said, why are you working here? Because you're working on the production line. And he said, because I get to save lives. It's not in the way I was trained to or that I intended to, but I get to save lives. And that's why I'm here. And I will retire from here because I love this place. And, when you think of refugee and these images that we are sometimes in the media taught, like, is nothing even close to reality. Like, this country could not function without having this kind of diversity across the board in every industry. It's so necessary and important part of our social fabric to bring in people from all over the world into our own communities and become an international global family. And that's what we are here. We all refer to each other as family, and we spend a lot of time here. So, and we help each other all the time in any way that we can, in the most beautiful ways. I see different, everyone helping each other at home and at work. And so I feel very lucky to be able to spend every day with a community of Simons across the board.
Well, that's an amazing story. And, speaking of family, you have 4 daughters, and, what has that experience been like, being a mom, being a CEO, being a role model? How do you feel in that role?
Yep.
Wearing all those hats.
So there's a lot there. So, for starters, starting your own business allows you to have the flexibility to be able to have mommy hours. So every year I would adjust my schedule around what the girls are doing. So, if they're done with school at 3, I'm home at 3. They don't even know I went to work. I'm there for homework and sports and dinner and talk about their boyfriends or, whatever's going on. That's always been really important to me. I also want them to know that because I have 4 girls, it's very important to raise them by leading by example. And, why do you have to study and why do you have to get good grades and work hard? Well, because I don't want you to just spend your time unloading a dishwasher. I expect you to do something that, something that you love, And so I remember when the twins were 8 and I opened the first factory in Providence. They were 8 years old and they would come by to visit the office all the time. And they're like, Mom, are you in charge of all these people? Are you the boss? And I was like, yeah, I'm the boss. And then I never wanted them to think about that again. I want it to be so natural and normal that mom is the CEO of a manufacturing company, and that's what they can do as well. And I remember once giving a commencement speech, and there were 5,000 people in the audience, and my girls are sitting there in the audience. And afterwards, my daughter Zara comes up to me and she says, Mom, I sat there and I just thought to myself, I can do this. I could do that. And I was like, that's exactly why we're all here. That is the only reason that we're all here, right? Is that you can see if my mom can do it, I can do it. And because I grew up so shy and lacking confidence that I don't want these girls to waste a second being lacking confidence, because you can't fulfill your potential when you are worried, when you're fearful and all of it. You just can't. And so the faster I can encourage them to shine as brightly as possible, then look how many years we've saved. And so I loved listening to her, say that. I also get to pack them in my suitcase all the time and drag them around to places. And for a while, they'd say, like, Mom, why can't we just be like normal people? And we just want to go to Florida for spring break. And I was like, no. They're like, but why not? And I'm like, because, no offense to Floridians, but you will not remember a trip to Florida, but you will remember a trip to Haiti, I assure you. And all of my kids can tell you insane stories of mom field trips of when we've gotten stuck somewhere, sick somewhere, something terrible has happened, but it's memorable. It's memorable. And they have been in clinics all around the world. They have met these mothers, these children. They have seen what it's like for a child to say, I'm hungry, and watch a mother not be able to feed her child. It's heartbreaking. And so they've seen that face to face. And so they cannot forget what they've seen. And I don't expect them to all come and run Edesia, although I have 2 contenders right now. But find what makes you tick, and what keeps you up at night in a good way to continue to want to fight every day. And also to do something that never really feels like work. Like I never feel like I'm coming to work. I love coming here. I get so much energy by being here. And so I just feel so privileged to have been able to take them on this journey with me. So after they used to complain about going to, here, there, and everywhere, one day they said, Mom, are we not going to Africa this summer? And I was like, no, I didn't schedule anything. They're like, oh. I'm like, what do you mean? You want to go? Okay. So within 48 hours, I was like, we're going to Sierra Leone. We leave next week. And this is what we'll be doing. And I love that now they really see the joy and they feel so comfortable there, hugs for every kid in the whole country. And just, they're very welcoming, and they're very just open to this concept of humanity. It's to watch their shy, hesitant at first to transition to, I feel really comfortable here and safe is amazing. And I kind of wish that everyone could feel that and understand that the world is not something to be scared of, but that it's completely overflowing with love and people who want to work together, live together, celebrate together in so many amazing ways.
Well, what, amazing formative experiences for them to have. And, it will be interesting to see what they go off and do with their lives. But,
Yes,
obviously creating an amazing role model for them. What advice do you give your own daughters, or would you give, another young person in terms of kind of connecting with that thing that keeps them up at night, the thing that kind of both, feels like a fitting vocation for them, but also, feels like they're connecting into a meaningful impact in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think it has to be very personal, because it takes every waking minute, right? Your brain is always working on this. And so I think trying to connect your own personal experiences to something. And it doesn't have to come to you, by the time you're 20. Like for me, I didn't get started until I was 35. And, you have the opportunity to do a lot of things in your life. And on average, a person will go through at least 3 or 4 big changes. And, so what you study in college, maybe you do that for your first 6 years, 10 years or something. For me, that's what I did. And then I switched to being a stay-at-home mom for 7 years. And then I've been doing this for 13 years. And maybe, I'm still fairly young, Willa. I've still got some energy to go. I probably have another 20 years,
Like I said, I've seen you next to me on the exercise.
That's right, on the treadmill. And so I think, you don't have to do it at a certain age. So don't stress about, oh my God, I haven't found my thing yet. So, trying some areas, and you're always learning skills no matter what you're doing, right? And so you might need to build on that for a little while. Other people might create something while they're in college, right? And drop out because their idea is so brilliant. So I think it comes to people at different times. Don't worry about it. There's no deadline. It really has to be about what really gets you angry, like what pisses you off so much that you feel like you have to do something about it. And then you just kind of know when it feels right.
Yeah, I think that's, so true, and just such, good advice. Just that you don't have to have it all figured out by a certain point, and you never know how all the pieces are going to connect back together, and feed into each other,
Right. That's where you are.
Until you're looking back.
Right. You're starting something new right now, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you're here and you're asking questions and you're giving it a try, and,
following curiosity, and not having all the answers, but saying, what, this is something that seems interesting to me and I need to pursue it. So
definitely no one has all the answers. So don't be fooled by anyone on that front.
Definitely. So, looking back, what's something now in your life that to be true and you feel, confident and grounded in that you didn't always know, but maybe wish you'd known, at an earlier stage in life?
Yeah, I mean, I think like just always questioning myself. I wish that I wouldn't do that. I still do it to this day. Do I have the skills? Am I right? Do I have what it takes to do this next step? I think it's always a constant struggle. And so even with successes, it still is a process. It's still a lot of work to try new things, but it's also really exciting at the same time when we try these new things. We try, launching a product in Stop and Shop. We have no idea how to do this, but taking it slow and step at a time, we can get there. But I wish that it wasn't always such a big process to kind of get up the courage every single time to, make a move into a new space. But then we're also like so energized by the potential opportunity at the same time.
And those, the kind of confidence builds over time. It's like you can kind of recall, okay, the last time I was feeling this feeling, I pushed through it and this is what happened, So I think it can get easier over time.
Yeah.
It's never easy.
Right. And at some point you gain a little credibility too. So people say, okay, your track record's, not so bad. So maybe there's potential here.
Yeah, that definitely helps too. Well, this has been amazing. Is there, any other reflections you want to share with our listeners before we sign off on life, entrepreneurship, social impact, business?
Yeah, I mean, just as I said, taking that first step is so important. And when you find that thing that clicks with you, there is no better feeling in the whole world. I could sit all day in a malnutrition clinic and watch these kids come in the door. And sometimes people say, well, isn't that must be so sad? And I say, no, because we came with a solution, it's nothing but hope. And I remember even sitting in a clinic And on the one side, you have a child who comes in for the first time so weak that they're unable to cry. Every ounce of their energy is going towards keeping their heart beating so they stay alive, right? And then on the other side is a child coming in for their last week's supply of Plumpy Nut. And they are running around, giving their mother all kinds of shit, just like little toddlers should be. And to see this like day one and at the end of 8 weeks, it is remarkable to see such a tangible change happen before your eyes. And so to me, that is hope. And to be able to see that just drives everything that we do, that we need to do more and more and more at any expense, work around the clock, just keep going to make sure that as many children have that transformation, that chance at life, that chance to grow their brains so that they can go to school, they can, go off into society and their community and be amazing, successful young people is something I can never get bored of doing.
And it's so simple. The intervention is so simple, yet so powerful. But, it's kind of this system that needs to be cracked, to actually make it happen. So it's just so inspiring what you're doing. And, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Well, thanks, Willa. I wish you all luck and the best with your new adventures as well. You're going to be awesome.
Well, before we go, can you tell everyone how to find out more about Edesia?
Yeah, so you can go to edesianutrition.org is our website. And then we're also on Instagram and Facebook. So check us out, learn a little more about what's going on around the world, and keep up with, the new initiatives that we hope to continue making as we go along.
Well, thank you so much, Navyn. It's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to sharing this conversation.
Great. Thanks, Willa.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for sharing another episode of the Firestarter podcast, people, ideas, and conversations that move us forward. If you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, as well as the video of today's show at firestarterix.com/podcast. That's firestarterix.com/podcast. Connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at Willa Kammerer, that's Kammerer, and at FirestarterIX, and I'm Willa Kammerer on LinkedIn. This is the Firestarter podcast. I'm your host, Willa Kammerer, and I can't wait to share our next conversation. In the meantime, stay safe, stay well, and let's stay busy making the world a better place.